We're at Freedom Plaza in Washington, D.C. And what's the name of your group?
I'm the director of World Can't Wait, begun in 2005 as the World Can't Wait Drive Out the Bush regime. We continued after Obama became president to stop the crimes of our government.
Now, Debra, what's your feeling about the significance, let's just call it the October 2011 movement? What's the significance of that that's different from other things that's been done, protest-wise?
Well, we began in March of this year to talk about this being the 10th anniversary of 9/11, the 10th anniversary of the Bush regime's bombing and occupation of Afghanistan, and upcoming is the 10th anniversary of Guantanamo, January 11, 2012. And we know that these anniversaries mean something. It's an increase in mainstream coverage, but in the most large sense, these are the longest occupations that the U.S. has undertaken in its history. This has not gone well, certainly most importantly for the people who have been occupied, for the over 1 million Iraqis, for the people whose countries have been destroyed. Afghanistan was one of the poorest countries in the world. It remains so after billions and billions of dollars have been spent by the U.S. to occupy it. 10 years ago, Afghanistan was the second worst country in the world for a woman to give birth. And now after 10 years of occupation, what's been accomplished by this occupation, Afghanistan is now the most dangerous country on the globe for a woman to give birth. This is what these occupations are doing in defense of a global U.S. empire, a predator around the world, 1,100 military bases. So on this 10th anniversary, we're out here to demand an end to these occupations. Iraq is still going, Afghanistan is not over. Forces agreements have been signed to stay till 2014, till 2024. This is all at a tremendous cost, morally, financially, and I focus most upon, frankly, on the moral cost to the people killed and to the people who are participating. This morning we were at General Atomics, which is a supplier of drone parts. It has a lobbying office right around the corner from the White House, literally. We shut down the whole building for an hour or so in protest of the fact that this war making is coming from the White House. The commander-in-chief of the war party, the Democrats, is now in charge of this $4 trillion occupation, killing more than 1 million Iraqis, hundreds of thousands of people, including U.S. military, whose lives are destroyed, traumatic brain injury. More U.S. military has killed themselves than were killed by the so-called enemy in Iraq. And we see these drone bombings. Today we carried 3 models of the Reaper drone, accurate, 1/5 the size of the drones, which prey upon the civilian populations of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, Libya, more than a mile in the air, targeting people for days, and then killing people, including civilians, who are then named insurgents or militants by the U.S. government. All of this has to be stopped by the action of the people. The World Can't Wait has joined in this great coalition, October2011.org, to start this occupation of D.C. Little did we know that Occupy Wall Street would have started just 3 weeks ago, and this has spawned occupations all over the country. We're talking to all of them about the importance and the primacy of ending these occupations, not just because they are sucking funds from jobs and housing, but because this whole military machine, the largest in the history of the world, is there to protect and extend a global U.S. economy that's exploiting people around the world. Not in our interests, not whatsoever in our interests, and certainly impoverishing and immiserating billions of people in the world, 2 billion of which are facing starvation right now. This is not a world we want to live in, and fixing tax policy, and I'm sorry, regulating banks is not going to solve it. We have to stop this war machine. And this is why we're out here on Freedom Plaza. You should come join us. You can find out more about World Can't Wait's work across the country against the wars and torture at worldcan'twait.net. Today you can send a virtual sign and we'll paint it and put it out here in the sign garden on 13th in Pennsylvania, where we were since 7 o'clock yesterday morning talking to the public, walking by the occupation about the wars and getting people involved in making their own signs, looking at the memorial for the victims of the U.S. global war on terror, looking at the models of drones, learning about the Bush Museum of Torture, the torture techniques put into effect by the Bush regime, and how Guantanamo is still open. Exactly, Guantanamo is still open 3 years after Obama became president. And in fact, the U.S. is building a $100 million new prison in Bagram, where 2,000 prisoners are denied by argument of the Obama administration, continuing the Bush policy that these prisoners have no habeas corpus rights, no legal representation, no ability to know why they're being held, and no way to get out. In our name, in Afghanistan. And why does the Obama administration say they can't have habeas corpus rights? Because they're in a war zone created by, guess who? The United States government themselves. The Afghan people, the Iraqi people want these occupations over. They're not given a say, just the same way that we're not given a say. We can't vote on these occupations. We can't vote on having 1,100 military bases around the world. We have to vote with our voices and our feet, to be in the streets, to be in the schools, to be interfering with recruitment into the U.S. military, to stop the flow of young people into the war machine, and to stop and stand up for the rights of people being tortured and held indefinitely, including in places around the world that we are not even allowed to know about, standing in opposition to the president being able to target and kill people by only his authority. This people would have never stood for, I'm sorry, would not have stood for George Bush doing this, and they're accepting Barack Obama doing it.
This just happened the other day.
A week ago.
They targeted an American citizen.
Anwar al-Awlaki, they killed another American citizen, and that's the least of it. They killed human beings not in a war zone, who were not threatening or firing anything themselves. No evidence has been shown that they were.
They were like the mafia. They just go kill people.
Let's just take you out, and they have a hit list. Obama has a hit list. We don't know who's on it. It's very dangerous that these drones are proliferating all over the world and able to take people out in this way. This does not make the world safer, and it certainly doesn't make a world that we want to live in. No matter who's doing it, no government should be allowed to do this. So the world can't wait for us to rise up, to stand up, to open our mouths, and to stop the crimes being carried out in our name. Come to worldcan'twait.net and find out the update and the live stream about what's happening in the occupation here at Freedom Plaza in Washington at October2011.org.
Thanks so much, Deborah.
Thank you, Bill.
Very good.